Good morning, everyone. It is 9 o'clock. Great to see you. And we're getting ready to kick off the meeting. And of course, thank you for working for benefit of older adults in Arlington, especially those who are with the greatest social and economic needs. And great to see all our members. And we have our newest member, Molly. Would you like to introduce yourself, Molly?
Yeah, hi, I'm Molly Gilbert. This is my first meeting, and I really appreciate getting to know some of you throughout, when I was interviewing, and kind of meeting folks. But I have worked in healthcare policy, mostly in the Medicare space, for the duration of my career. And so when I was looking for ways to get involved in Arlington County, this stuck out as something that I felt would be rewarding and that hopefully I can give back to. So I'm really looking forward to being involved.
Great, thanks, and great to have you here. And great to have Andrea.
Oh, yes.
How are you? And I'm not gonna mention everyone else by name because I would miss somebody. Okay. So anyway, great to see you here. And so Helen's gonna give some background later on the electronic meetings rule that's still being reviewed and updates to the county's handbook on commissions and boards. And we have a transportation update and we have guest speakers. Of course, we have Wendy, Emily Braley, and her folks. And is there a bomb going on? I hope not. Anyway, all right. And also we have Michael Schuster from the Alexandria. He's the chair of the Alexandria Commission and also at NVAN. And speaking of Northern Virginia work, September 20th is the breakfast. And they believe 6 items, 3 legislative and 3 non-legislative that are pending. And I'm fortunate to work with Michael, extending the eviction deadline and also requiring landlords to permit repayment plans when tenants have less than a month of debt. So I only mention that because if you want to get involved, please either reach out to me, Michael, or just go to the NVAN website. All right. That. So Jim, good morning. Cherrydale land lease extension updates. We'd love to hear from you.
Hello, commissioners. It's wonderful to be here this morning. I am here to give you an update on an ongoing effort that a collaborative effort with both DHS, DES, and Medical Facilities of America, who owns and operates the Cherrydale Health Lease Center. So we have been working on a lease extension for quite some time, and we're very close to getting to the point where this will go to the board. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen so that you can see some talking points. One second here. All right.
Hang on, I'm going to start this.
Can I go ahead and proceed?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. All right. Okay, so like I said, just some quick updates. The land lease is between Arlington County and Medical Facilities of America, known as MFA. We are doing this at the request of MFA because they want to make some physical improvements to the building. It's going to provide some modernization and some updates to the overall physical building itself, both inside and outside. All right, so what's happening? So the current lease runs through 2030. The action that we are engaged in right now will extend the lease through 2071. So what will happen is we will have 5-year check-ins between 2030 and 2071, just to make sure that there don't need to be any adjustments, that the market pricing is correct for the rent. Just make sure there's no changes to state code or real estate. And this will give us an opportunity again to check in every so often, right? It also sets a requirement in the lease that MFA has to maintain at least 180 beds plus. What we have been told by them is that through these capital project efforts and the improvements that they're making, they plan to add up to 60 beds over the next few years. So not only will this capital improvement project improve the signage, the space, the overall feel and look of the health center, it's also going to add beds to the facility, which, as you are aware, is very attractive to Arlington. So they're also going to just refresh the interior, add some additional lighting and signage. There's upgrades to the HVAC system that are planned. And then the two major updates that will occur at Cherrydale is they're going to add a dialysis den, and they're also going to add a tracheotomy unit for the residents that are there. The plan is to have this go to the board for approval in the next few months. As you know, the board doesn't meet in August, so they're aiming for July, but there's still a few odds and ends just to tie up. So, but it will go to the board for approval in the coming months. So that's all I have for updates on this, but it was a very it's been a very interesting effort working with in the commercial real estate world. That's an area where I haven't dabbled before. I've learned a lot, and we really look forward to all these updates that MFA has planned for Cherrydale Health.
All right, thank you, Jim. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Jim? All right, Charlie, please.
Hi, this is Charlie Sabatino on the Commissioners. I co-chair the Long-Term Care Residences Committee. I don't know whether I was on the loop and wasn't aware of this, but this is the first I've heard of the lease renegotiation. And it's unfortunate because what you're proposing is absolutely contrary to what this commission has proposed in its age-friendly plan for the next 5 years. We are intending to move, or hoping to move the nursing home industry towards downsizing into smaller household units, at least the residents with single rooms and bathrooms. And that's a major change in the institutional structure of nursing homes. And by 2071, I guarantee you there will be very few nursing homes left that have double and multiple occupancy rooms. And if this lease extends that far, it needs to be a little bit more visionary into what nursing home care is going to look like. The other problem is that nursing homes in Arlington, the 3 freestanding nursing homes, have a terrible quality record. They all currently have 1-star ratings from CMS, which is not a very, in a lot of ways, stringent quality measure. And the local county has had very little authority in the past to do much about quality, but we think that there are ways to change that. One way would be to include a provision that was in the original lease agreement of requiring the facility to have a community advisory council so that the local community is able to put eyes inside the building occasionally. And the other possibility is to require certain transparency requirements to the county, particularly when there are changes in leadership. We find that the nursing homes are a revolving door of leadership from executive director, directors of nursing, social work, et cetera. And that would be, that in itself is an important gauge of quality. So there's a lot of creative thinking that could be done in this lease agreement, and I hope there's some opportunity to at least discuss those, if not incorporate them into what's moving ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Do we have any other comments? All right. Kristen?
Hi, Jim. This is Kristen Johnson, one of the commissioners
Hey.
as well. I have a question about does the new lease agreement allow some of the programs from Arlington County to have required vetting? So like with SAM, with nurse case management, and with RAFT, are they gonna have an increased bed allotment?
So this particular agreement is focused only on the lease of the land, not the programmatic side of operations that occur between Arlington and the Cherrydale Health Center. So there's nothing in there about programmatic requirements. This is solely about the lease of the land, the actual transaction that occurs between MFA and the county for them to lease the land that the building sits on. What you're referring to is probably more in the the memorandum of understanding realm that we have with them. But I think that is definitely an area for us to explore to see if that is a stronger possibility.
All right.
Thank you, Julian.
Yes.
I guess my one comment would be it would be wonderful if county staff could make an unplanned visit to Cherrydale, not a plan where they get to, spip everything up before you get there. But an unplanned visit sometime before this comes before tied into this question of the MOU and facility maintenance.
All right. Thank you, Wendy. Carlos?
I appreciate what Charlie had shared, and it wasn't so much a form of question, so I'm gonna go back to it. So given what he had to share, how can our age-friendly plan recommendations be considered in what's being proposed to the board? That's the question.
Right.
Jim, do you have any thoughts on that? I know you said your part is just the real estate lease part.
Correct. I only caught part of the question. How can the age-friendly plan? And then I didn't hear the rest of the question. I'm sorry.
How can the age-friendly plan be considered in what is being proposed to the board?
Okay, to the board. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I think that the lease is again more real estate transactional. And I do want to again highlight that there are these 5-in check-in periods, 5-year check-ins that will occur. Every 5 years we'll do these check-ins at a minimum, but of course that doesn't preclude us from like the DHS side, reaching out to Cherrydale to address concerns or issues. But I think that the age-friendly plan can be blended in a little bit more through discussion and some of the more on the MOU side.
Thank you, Jim.
But there's definitely opportunity.
Erica, you have your hands up.
Yes, I just wanted to reinforce what Charlie has said and what Carlos has said, and the importance of the transparency features, the small household model, and particularly the Community Advisory Council. I know that probably goes more in the MOU, but we have made efforts to have a Community Advisory Council, and they've met with only minimal or varying success. So I think that that's something that we don't want to lose track of in any way, Jim, that we can emphasize that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Erica. Yes, Linda.
Hi, this is Linda Kelleher. I absolutely agree. I agree with Charlie and with what Erica has to say. I think that the intersection of what's planned for the physical plant and what is in the agreement with the lease agreement has to coincide with our age-friendly plan or we're useless. So, you know, the question about minimum beds, let's talk to them about what their process is and visionary for the future. I hate to be a stickler because it sounds like you've worked very hard on this, Jim, but you know, so have we.
Yeah, so, so I'm gonna, in the interest of time, I'm gonna move on. But I request, these are great comments and I appreciate our advocating and in getting the age-friendly plan incorporated. So I'm gonna ask the long-term care committee to engage with Jim and the respective parties to incorporate our interests.
And to visit.
And to visit.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so thank you, everyone. I love it. All right, so next we have the transportation spotlight, and to Melissa, apologies, I didn't mention you earlier. Melissa, there you are, okay. So we have your performance parking update and look forward to it.
Let me share my screen. I need double screens down here. Okay.
So I'll just let you know when.
Yeah,
It's okay.
feel free to go up or wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I guess I'll stand up here. I'm not behind it.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is
morning.
Melissa McMahon. I am the parking and curb space manager for Arlington County. We are undertaking what we're calling the Performance Parking Pilot Project in commercial corridors. This is a 100% VDOT funded project where we are testing out some new technologies to help us manage our curbs better. This pertains to our Metro Rail corridors presently, and specifically the metered parking spaces in those corridors. So you want to flip the slide. The purpose of this project is to help us make metered parking spaces more available more often, and when folks need them, basically. And we're doing that through a combination of pricing strategies and providing useful information to folks in a time and a manner in which you can actually plan for your parking rather than just showing up and hoping for the best. So that is actually a behavior change thing, right? Because nobody's used to planning ahead or necessarily knowing ahead where the parking is available, but we actually have this information now. And it's available on your phone, it's available on your computer, and we're even going to be trying some signs out on the street that can tell you as a driver if you don't want to use your phone while you're driving, which makes sense. It can give you some direction on where to find your parking and to understand what price it is in advance. The purpose also of using a pricing approach is because there's a lot of evidence out there, other projects, that if you can differentiate pricing from the low demand areas today, the streets that aren't being used very well, and the high demand areas, those streets that are full, and when you circle the block, you never find a spot, you can use price to help incentivize people to actually choose to park in the areas where there's more parking available. And all of this is to help us reduce the negative impacts that we see today associated with the search for parking. So people are double parking, people are cruising around for parking. It's dangerous for people walking, it's dangerous for people bicycling. There's erratic driving behavior that can be dangerous for other drivers and for all of those other road users. Not to mention the extra vehicle miles traveled, the potential extra emissions, and so on and so forth. And even going elsewhere to do business. So from the Arlington County-wide perspective, we certainly want to make sure that all of our commercial corridors are being managed the best we can to help the users of these businesses get there effectively. Next slide, please. So why this particular pilot project? This comes straight out of our master transportation plan. We have a policy in there to utilize parking meter pricing strategies that vary by hour and location to better match parking availability and demand. So this is a long time coming. This plan has been in place for a while, and staff have been chipping away at various activities within it. But we did receive, again, a 100% VDOT funded grant to allow us to experiment with these new technologies and with these new management approaches. Next slide. I also wanted to highlight some things that this project does not do. It does not commit the county to any specific long-term parking strategy. It doesn't seek to overall increase the revenue that we're getting from these spaces. So we don't actually know what the revenue impact is going to be because some spaces are going to go down in price, some spaces are going to go up in price. So there's no real sense of that. We probably won't have a sense of that till the end of the project. We are not increasing meter rates across the board. We are not decreasing the number of reserved ADA accessible parking spaces, but I do want to mention, and I will a little bit later, that we are examining those. Especially, we can pull them out of the data set. We can work to understand and supplement with field work what's actually going on with our accessible parking spaces on the street, who's parking in them, how often they're used, where we might need more of them. This project does not create dynamically or fast changing pricing. So folks early in this project in our outreach expressed concern that this might be like the surge pricing you see with Uber or Lyft or on the hot lanes. It's not like that. We don't change the prices any more than once a quarter. And we message it out. We put the package and the maps stuff online so that people will see a price change in certain areas according to data, but they can also plan for it. And you can look and you can see that information in advance. So if there's a neighborhood you go to a lot, you can plan in advance for where you're going to pick to park there. And you can use those data again about availability and price to make your choice. And again, generally, we're not changing the type of curb use at this time. We're just trying to help manage our curb uses better. Next slide. This is just a slide about the study design. It's an iterative process. So we've gotten through the installation of infrastructure phase. We've gotten through a board action that's allowing us to change these prices administratively instead of having to go back to them every single time. And now we're in the process of making a meter price change, observing the data, seeing what's going on there, analyzing those data, making another meter price change on that quarterly basis. So we're going to keep doing that in an iterative cycle for about 2 years. Next slide. This is a map of our project area. So you can see it's the metered spaces in the RB corridor and in that Route 1 corridor, Richmond Highway.
Roslyn Balls.
Yes, sorry, Roslyn, Boston. Yep, and the neighborhoods in between that are along the Metro Rail. This slide is just a quick summary of the outreach that really made up our first phase of the process. This was getting the community aware of the project. We did have an initial feedback form with 135 responses. We put decals on all of our multimeters, and we now have signs on all of our single space meters too, to let people know that there's a project going on, and you can scan the QR code to go straight to our page. We've got, it says over 6,000 click-throughs, but I think it's closer to 8,000 at this point through those codes on the meters themselves. We did 4 pop-ups last summer with 100 interactions. Those were at places like farmers markets. And we have also done an extensive amount of business targeting. As you can imagine, these metered spaces are on commercial corridors, and one of our key stakeholder groups are these businesses along the corridors. So we've reached out through door to door, knocking, handing out flyers. We have a long email list that we send out these notifications every time we do a price change. And we've been providing flyers to all of our retail storefronts as we implement a change. So we've only done one of these so far, and we're going to do a second. And when we do that, we want to make sure that the businesses in the blocks that are going to have some changes get a direct interaction with us it's like a neighborhood map essentially that shows the changes that are really adjacent to that neighborhood. Yeah, and we have an open feedback form today. And there's a note in the last slide on the set that you can go online at any time and provide feedback on the project. Next slide. I wanted to highlight some early feedback that we got from persons with disabilities. I'm trying to think, I don't know that we collected or specifically analyzed by age, but we did ask, and 16% of our feedback form responses reported having a disability that impacts their mobility. And when we looked at their answers to questions about what they care about in the right of way as far as managing the curb, they valued more highly than other respondents less double parking, less time looking for parking, people shifting to the less well-used blocks because the folks with disabilities need to use what's often the well-used blocks, right? So they want other folks to be able to pick another one, and greater enforcement of our streetscape. Disabled parkers want to retain good access, and they are concerned about paying higher rates since more distant, cheaper options may not be feasible for them. So we heard that loud and clear. Our ADA spaces or accessible spaces are among those that we are not changing price for right now. So when I talk in a little bit about our current price changes and what's gone on, we haven't changed those prices yet, but we're waiting to collect several months of data and give us a chance to look at the way those spaces are behaving before we make a proposal. And we certainly also intend to come back to some key stakeholder groups before we push a proposal forward with a change so that we can get some feedback on it. And we anticipate we're going to have to do some field work on the ADA spaces at the same time, because there can be data saying a space is full all the time, but we have anecdotal stories from folks saying that people who don't have the correct authorization to use those spaces are in fact the ones using them. And that can be skewing our data in terms of understanding what's going on. Next slide. Here are just a couple slides to show you the way you go online today and how we actually use tools to. And this is a dashboard that can show you historical occupancy statistics. And down the left-hand side are filters. So you can select by month, by day, by hour, by area, by block, by street. And those filters will allow you to zoom in and look at the occupancy and the behavior in those spaces. And the color scheme here was sort of a dark orange, a gray, and a blue. This is a rough framework where blue means spaces that are underutilized. We would say they could have more people parking on them. The orange are spaces that are overutilized. They're at a point where if someone's driving down the street, they might not find a spot there. They might get frustrated. They might start doing some of the things we don't want people to do. And the gray are the spaces or block faces where we have kind of that Goldilocks zone where it's used well enough, but it's convenient. People can still expect to find a spot if you go to those block faces. So this is a cool tool. It's available online today through our project page. You want to go to the next slide? This is not available on our project page yet, but I did want to share this with you because this connects us back to that feedback we got about enforcement. We are able for the first time in the county to do a compliance analysis associated with who's paying, not who, what amount of spaces are being paid for when they're being parked in during our metered hours. So historically, when someone asked, how busy do you think a place is, one of our lots, one of our streets, all we could turn to is our transaction data from meters. But now that we have 24/7, 365 occupancy data from sensors, we can compare it to our transaction data and we can see that people are only paying for about 50% of the time they're parking. And it's actually a lot less in a lot of areas. So we have this dashboard to share with the police parking enforcement folks, and they have access to this dashboard. And they can break it right down to street blocks. And they can see that the 1400 block of North Yulee and Courthouse has a percent compliance rate of 3.6%. So it's really granular. That's not super helpful for most people. But for us, this is part of the story that we're trying to tell the story about a combination of things we need. We need better management, but part of that is going to be enforcement strategy. And as I think you all have probably experienced if you're working with the county, they have limited resources of humans that can actually go out and check every block face. And if you've asked for parking enforcement support, you might know that you haven't, it's not just in the metered spaces, it's our residential permit parking blocks. It's a lot of different things that they're being asked to do. So this isn't to say that we have a magic bullet. It's more to say we have information to help us plan and help us allocate resources. Next slide. Yep. So some parking meter prices are now changing. And the county board back in February authorized a temporary change to the way we manage the meter prices so that we can do these price changes administratively. We run it up the chain through the manager. We get his sign off on it. We don't have to go and bring it to a board action. And yeah, that's basically what this slide says. So we're not changing them any more than quarterly. The first price change that we did was actually back on March 18th. And this is sort of a slide, this map, which you can pull up online if you want to zoom in and see more detail. We have these maps available that basically show red block faces and lots as pertinent, which are the places where things are changing. It doesn't tell you which direction necessarily at this point. It happened to be that they were all, in our first price change, it was just increasing prices in some areas. And we actually focused on increasing prices only between in the peak hour period of the day. So what we saw was in most areas, there was only a peak window, and that peak was typically the midday. In some places, there might have been another peak, but there wasn't an all-day reason to change the price. So we actually did a price increase, 50 cents between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. in some specific blocks of the county. We used the data September to December to inform that. Next slide. And we are about to do a second price change. And in this price change, we are using data from March to May, when we are looking at what's been happening in that window of time. We are looking again at average occupancy during the 4 consecutive peak hours of the day, but those are not necessarily 10 to 2 in all the areas. So we're looking at where it's still 10 to 2. And in those places, they might be blocks that see a second price increase. And again, this is because in the peak hours, we're talking about blocks that are over 80% full. Some of them are 90% full. These are blocks that you couldn't find a parking space on if you did drive by. And we're trying to alleviate that through a combination of raising price on those blocks to encourage people to look somewhere else. And in this price change, we're actually decreasing prices on a bunch of blocks as well. So you can see sort of in the map, there are blue areas, a little bit down here, some blue areas up there in Clarendon and Courthouse, and there might be a little bit in Roslyn. Blue areas to complement the red areas, blue areas ideally where we've dropped the price a little bit, next to places where we've increased the price a little bit. And again, we're trying to inch our way toward people understanding that they have choice and that we're giving more choice. So people who are price sensitive have options to choose from, but also the people who are not price sensitive know that others could be making different choices and they will have better access to the street blocks that they need access to. And again, as a reminder, we're not changing the price for the ADA spaces that are on these same blocks. So they are staying what they are. And yeah, so we were looking at the average occupancy and we were also looking at compliance. We are trying to be sensitive to the fact that in some areas where compliance is very low, we don't want to just up and up and up the price because that means people aren't actually paying anyway. And the people who are paying are not paying a lot. The people who aren't paying are still paying nothing. And that's, we can see with the problem that that can bring. So we're trying to do this carefully so that the blocks where we are increasing price are ones that have sufficient compliance to suggest that people might notice and might start making different choices. Next slide. And this slide has links to a whole bunch of new tools that we have. So I mentioned we've got live occupancy and price on several interactive tools. Some are fun, like the dashboard earlier, if you like to look at data and you want to explore. But several of these are actually for parking trip planning. So Curb IQ, ExactNav, and we actually have a new layer of availability data in Park Mobile. So if you use Park Mobile normally to park and pay, all you have to do is turn on that map layer and you can see the availability on their same display. So you can look and you can say, okay, I'm zooming in. You can actually, we can't tell Park Mobile how to design their display, but you could in theory test the price out. When you say, I'm going to park for 2 hours, I'm going to park for 3 hours, you can see how much it's going to cost. And you can try this other block where you know it's cheaper and you'll see that it's cheaper if you go and park there. So you can see the availability, you can see the price on 3 different tools. ExactNav is another app which you can download, and Curb IQ is a mobile-friendly web page. So you don't have to download anything, but you can view it well on your phone. So all of those we've provided through this project because we want to learn how people best receive information. We want to get more information from the community, feedback on what it takes to shift the way that you plan trips, what it takes to shift the way that you use the information to make decisions. And we have public APIs now available as well, where app developers can actually take all of our data and they can visualize things. So we're actually planning a sort of community hackathon kind of event for the fall. It's not set up yet, but the idea is that we know we've already got some people who are streaming data from the API. I know at least one transportation commissioner who has played with it. There's a lot of different ways we could use this, and we don't expect that we have all the answers internal to our project team. We want the community to also give us feedback on what's the best, most useful way to use the data we have. Yep, and we will have wayfinding displays in the public right of way at some point in the near future. So those will be really interesting, very obvious as you're coming into a neighborhood, and hopefully we can get some feedback on those as well. Next slide. So yeah, this is close to the end here, just highlighting that we have an ongoing feedback form online. We just take, it's anonymous unless you put your contact information in it, but it's designed to just take feedback on the project, ideas, thoughts. We have a companion team that is paid separately and managed separately by VDOT that's helping us with analysis of our project, sort of a third party look in to the effectiveness of this over the next 2 years. They are running this happy or not experience tool in both of the corridors in a different ways. Some you can get QR codes from the meters, but you can also get a pop-up and provide information right from Park Mobile. And that is designed to collect in situ and in the moment parking experience data. So we can hopefully see if there are decreases in good experience, increases in good experience throughout the course of the project. And I did want to highlight that our next focus in outreach is retail and restaurant employees. We are designing and hosting small group conversations in July this summer. It's very hard to reach these folks, but we are hoping to at least get a good handful of people together around the table. We know that these are folks who may be using the street to park for longer periods for their whole shift of work. They may not be making a lot of money, so they can be very price sensitive, but they might be situationally unable to avoid paying. So we do want to talk to them about how they're using the street, where they're using it, and why. Next slide. And I got these questions in advance from Helen and via Helen, which of you provided these questions. So I wanted to speak to them now and then before we open up for live questions. How are we engaging diverse stakeholders for feedback and orienting them to the program and new trip planning tools? This is a great question, and this is a challenge for our project. One of the biggest challenges is that the audience of who uses metered parking is not necessarily just an Arlington audience, right? So our project so far has done presentations to all sorts of commissions like yours. And we've got a really good website with a lot of tools. And we send emails out to all of the people subscribe to transportation newsletters. So there's a lot of different ways we've been pushing information out. But diverse stakeholders, I lean on commissions in some ways to get access to different stakeholder perspectives. But we are struggling to get access to parkers themselves. So the people that we do intercept conversations with on the street next to the places where the meters are having price changes, they're often oblivious to the fact that we have the project going. Sometimes they don't care at all. They're just like, yeah, it was either a good or bad experience. They don't know what it's in relation to. But they're not necessarily from Arlington. They don't necessarily always come to that area. So the users of the parking space are a challenging group to capture. And that isn't to say we aren't going to continue to try. So I'm here today in part in my attempt to continue to branch out to different populations and make sure there is awareness, but also get your feedback on the best ways to target, particularly outreach on getting these planning tools in front of folks, because I feel like we understand there to be high mobile phone ownership and use, not necessarily always with the cell service that goes with it. Sometimes it's mobile phones used in places where there's free Wi-Fi. But we want to make sure folks who have the knowledge and the skills to use these devices are also able to get on top of this. One of the things we're producing, hopefully available this week or next week, are some short videos that we're going to push out through social media and other channels, literally little videos on how to use each of the tools. They'll run about a minute and a half, something like that. And they have screenshots. So it's like a narrator over the screen showing you what you click on. So we're excited to get those out. They're in production now. So that's another little example, but we also have to get those in front of people. Where are we with the analysis of whether or not more people are choosing to park where there are more available spaces today? So we have these windows of time between each price change to analyze our data. And what we saw with the first price change was not a lot changed, frankly. And there's a couple pieces there. One is that that the uptake of these tools is still pretty slow. And when we get feedback from people anecdotally who are using them, they find them very useful, but I also know there's only like 2 people out there using them today. We also are only changing the price by 50 cents up at a time, which is not a lot. So one of the things we do expect is that this project, because it runs for 2 years for a reason, it's going to have to be cumulative. And there's going to be places and times when potentially we start getting feedback that this price is more annoying. Right now, we just get general feedback on people don't like to pay to park. You know, we know that, right? But people also don't like to not find a parking space. And they really want to find a parking space when they're looking for it in the place they're looking for it. So this is the trade-off that we're having a storytelling adventure around. Where are we with ADA space analysis? We haven't really started it, frankly. We are collecting those data. And so we have the data, we will continue to collect those data, and we will be developing a strategy and communicating out to stakeholders before we do a first price change on the ADA spaces. So it is something that we essentially have them separated on purpose so that we can analyze them separately. Where are we with understanding the needs and preferences of older adults? This is a great question. I don't think we have, well, actually, I should say, I don't know if we have the data in the feedback forms that we have received thus far that can allow us to segregate by age. I know we have some demographic information, but it's not a lot and it's always optional. So it is an area we don't necessarily get 100% response to when people are providing input into the project. That's where we are today.
All right.
Yeah, and so this, on the next page are some more general parking questions, but if folks want to talk to me now about performance parking, before we hit on these, I'm happy to answer more questions and take your feedback.
Sure, yeah. We're running a little short on time, but do we have any questions or comments for Emily? Thank you. Yes.
I
I
have
mean,
a
Melissa.
question. Could you go back to the last frame? I like the last question, where we understand the needs and preferences of older adults. That is, are you considering putting a mechanism in place so that that data can be captured? Because I, as a senior, do not like driving down to Boston, Crystal City, or any of those areas because of the congestion and the lack of parking spaces. I'm not ADA, but I feel I need a preference. And I think I
In
need to,
Boston, you said?
yeah, in the Boston area. I have a grandson that lives in that area and I refuse to visit.
Park in the garage.
No, I just think that Arlington County needs to consider or do some kind of study that when you want to fix income, we're paying the same as I'm paying the same as my grandson when it comes to parking, and I feel that that's a disservice to me.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the short answer is yes, we will be incorporating some more strategies. We can't do them all at once. So right now, this summer's event is to try to capture some retail employee feedback.
Okay.
But older adults are one of the populations where we're going to have to do some strategic outreach specifically around that population. And there are different ways that we can do that. One of the thoughts that has been brought to us is using some of the religious communities that are along the corridors. And again, we're trying to go where they are. So we might be going to some church spaces. There could be other ways where we bring people together to have small group conversations around the interests of older adults.
Yeah, you might have to go outside of that area as well, because when you live in areas like Highview Park, Terry Way, that's not in that Boston area, but we like to go and visit, you know, Clarendon and Boston, but
Yeah.
Thank you, Peggy. Audrey, you have a question?
It's a 3 short points. One is that in terms of garages, a lot of older adults don't have enough, there's not enough light in the garages for them to navigate. So if you can work with garages to improve lighting, they may park there more often. I sometimes take a 94-year-old around Bethesda. And the Bethesda parking garages are free for people with disabled parking. And the third is a lot of older adults don't have smartphones and don't use computers. So when you talk to them, if you can collect that information, you'll have a better sense of how to reach them later.
Okay, I thought I saw a hand. Kathy?
Yeah, actually, related to garages, you made a comment about, well, you can park in the garage, but there is so much inconsistency across the county in how much it costs to park in a garage. Like Ballston is inexpensive. They have that new system where you have to, put your license plate number in. But if you go to Pentagon Row, West Coast, it's $20 to park. And just recently, I could not find any parking. I didn't even look for parking on the street near West Coast. I usually look in the parking lot. There was nothing, so I parked in the garage. And it was like $20 for an hour, hour and a half. So that's an issue with a lot of older people. Yeah. Easier to park there, but
One of the things we're hoping to do with those right-of-way displays is to be able to show a nearby garage asset as well with its availability / price. So it might help because there could be a side-by-side price comparison. You're right, Boston Garage is quite cheap. It's gonna be the cheapest thing you could do in Boston if you're comfortable with it. It's $1 for the first 3 hours kind of thing, and that's all. It doesn't change. Actually, after 6, it's $1, period.
What is
It's
the
really
signage
cheap,
like?
but
Is there a signage out there that, that's very clear and readable to seniors?
for that garage,
Yeah.
well, that's a great question. And I think if we put these displays in Boston, we can also help point people to where the garage entrances are. There are 2 entrances, but it's kind of like any garage. If you're driving past it, you see parking, but like if you knowing where to turn to get to it is different. And you're right, the consistency of the price across garages varies widely. Crystal City, the garages are pretty after 4 p.m. But
some.
yeah, like a lot of people don't even know, don't even realize, yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let's just stay recognized so we can do this. Andrew,
Have you talked to the 55 plus program?
great idea.
I really, really, really would like you to do a presentation there.
I was just sending her an email.
There she is.
I'm giving you an email.
Okay, sounds great. We would love to. I don't turn down the org
Thank you.
request.
Carlos.
So 2 things, maybe 3. So along those corridors, are there price differences and also time differences for the entertainment factor? So in the evening, people who want to go to a show or want to have the happy hour extended, I want to stay for 3 hours, 4 hours, is that option 1?
So the short answer is we haven't changed any time limits yet. However, we have data from our sensors now on duration of stay. So we actually also are able to use this to help inform whether or not we're setting the right time limits in an area. We could also ultimately recommend pricing tools that remove the need for a time limit and just say, first hour is the cheapest hour, second hour is the next cheapest hour, third hour, and it escalates. So instead of motivating people to move by a time limit that says now it's illegal to park, keep parking here, it does it with price. Now, we aren't implementing that yet. We're basically trying to use the learning process to figure out if we need to change time limits, but that has been a comment we've received.
Yeah, and then my second question is to your point about reaching those who might be impacted by price. So we want to reach and talk to people who are in the construction business, specifically Latinos. They have a tendency to share rides. So they come in mass in large trucks and vans and park at the 12 hour. So go to the day laborer site in Arlington County or show up early at 5 in the morning and talk to those people. That's how you get there.
Thank you, Carlos. Catalina, you had your hand up. Did you? No, okay, great. Oh, Roland. I saw something.
Listen, the 2-year period for the price increase, do you have a limit as to how much you can increase
Yeah.
the amount? You
Yeah.
can only increase $5?
The highest per hour price that we've been authorized to get to is $5 an hour. That's the highest. So we started at 175. The places that have received a change today, up to today, are 225. And then if they get another 50 cents, they'll be 275. But we would have to get to that, we would have to increase it every single quarter the entire time. It's not likely that will happen.
And do you anticipate that there may be areas where you would increase it more, like $1, whereas this area, we would only increase it by 50 cents? Or are you just going to increase you're gonna take an amount increase across the board.
TBD. TBD. Because we are trying to look if there are areas where the sensitivity is such that we should be using a higher increment. That's not specified in the ordinance, so we do have some flexibility there if we have manager support. So if we wanted to do 75 cents as an increase at some point in a particular area for a particular reason. And to your point about time limits, we are not prohibited from changing time limits during the course of this project. It's just a matter that signs, all of a sudden, that means we're changing out signs. It's a work order with a whole bunch of other staff involved. So it's a different kind of process, but we might still be there before the end of the 2 years.
And can you decrease?
Yes. So this price change that's starting next week has several areas where we're decreasing, and we're decreasing by 25 cents, not by 50 cents. But they will be next to some places that have had increases. So the difference between the two will start to be more obvious. It'll be 150 versus 275. And you might be like, oh yeah, I'd rather walk an extra block. Again, for those who have less of the location sensitivity, they might want to save the extra money.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, one of the things of considering the needs and preferences of older adults is looking at the long-term care residences. The staff and home health agencies, the staff who work there, communities like the Jefferson. There have been, voices of concern with parking issues at that community, but I think for home health aides and who are providing care for older adults in both the long-term care communities, like assisted livings and nursing homes, as well as the community, would be interested in have some perspective.
Great. Thank you very much.
Molly.
I was just gonna mention, in addition to inconsistency in pricing for garages, also with accessibility. I mean, sometimes there's elevators, sometimes the elevators are far away. Sometimes you have to walk up the ramp, which is challenging even for people without mobility impairments. So just that it's hard to tell when you go into a garage what it's gonna be.
Do we have any other questions?
Joan.
Want to make sure.
Joan has her.
Okay.
Yes, I have just a very quick question. I'm wondering how many curb parking spaces are included in your pilot? How many thousand curb parking spaces that have sensors that have been installed?
We've got about 4,500 of them in the packet. Yeah. And so that's all types, inclusive of the accessible spaces and the tour bus spaces and all of the time limited metered parking spaces in these corners.
Yeah. All right. So
One last question.
one last question.
I'd like to suggest you make a flyer designed the seniors, them to understand it in general. Don't go into all the computer crap and stuff like that. That it's happening, where it's happening, and, it's like a summary of what you presented to us. Because like you say, people don't know about it. And it would only help. And I would put it in the libraries and at the senior centers.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much. That's a great idea.
So Melissa, thank you very much. Innovation's always great. We're keeping an eye on the older adults and the ADA piece. We certainly don't want those to decrease. And as people noted, older adults and perhaps people who don't speak English or lower income people don't have phones or apps. And so we want to be aware of that. So, all right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And so, Emily and Wendy.
Okay. You want us to present from here? Should we go?
Please,
Okay.
your choice. We'd like to see you.
It's better because
Hello, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Emily Braley. I'm the former manager of NV Rides and now manager of volunteer services. And this is my colleague Elena. We're going to be talking about NV Rides volunteer transportation. Here we go. All right. Okay, you go to the next one. So we're also sharing our presentation with Wendy from Arlington Neighborhood Village because we both provide volunteer rides in Arlington County. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Elena Allervent and I'm an NV Rides manager. I've been in this role since April, so I'm kind of brand new and it's my first meeting on this commission. And Emily, as an expert, she's gonna answer any question you might have. In the area where public transportation can be limited and personal mobility becomes challenging with age, the need for reliable transportation is high. That's where our volunteer rides program steps in, connecting caring drivers with riders to assist them to go doctor's appointment, running errands, etc. Rides is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing transportation services for seniors. We were founded in 2014 and we're housing in Poses JCC, Jewish Community Center of Northern Virginia. We serve 4 counties, Arlington County, Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, and we have 16 partners organizations. Most of them are shepherd centers or villages. Next slide. We are an umbrella organization. We provide our partners with the software, the website Ride Scheduler that allows add information about drivers, riders, appointments, collect data, and create reports. We're covering drivers' background checks for our partners, and we're using for that Sterling volunteers. We train new volunteer drivers and provide training on a software for administrators. We are advocating for our partners' collective needs on local commission of aging, transportation commissions, and our most important role is recruiting new volunteers. Next slide, please. This role is most important because sometimes all our partners are experiencing a lack of volunteers, and we are here to help. We go to farmers markets, we go to community events to spread the word about our program. Rides is incredibly flexible for volunteers. Whether drivers want to spend few hours a week or a few hours a month, it still makes sense. The benefits of our volunteer ride program extend far beyond just transportation. The interaction between our drivers and riders fosters a sense of community is truly valuable. Many of our seniors live alone and cherish the opportunity to engage in friendly conversation with their volunteer drivers. The social connection have a deep impact on their overall well-being, reducing feeling of isolation and loneliness. And next slide, please. Some numbers for 2023 in Arlington. Our volunteers made more than 900 rides. They rode 9,000 miles. They donated 841 volunteer hours. The average trip is 9.8 miles. We have 37 active riders. Their average their average age is 76, and we have 23 volunteer drivers. They're younger. Their age 72. So ratio is two rider per one driver. Next slide, please. The rides category, as you can see on this chart, most our rides are medical, doctor's appointment, therapy, dental appointments. Grocery is also popular category. Some of our riders use our services to buy groceries. And 6% is other rides like mall, shopping, running errands, community events. And what's next in Arlington? As the demand for volunteer rides continues to grow in the coming years, we are looking at how to better serve the needs of the community. Our program doesn't charge in Arlington, so might receive clients who don't want to pay village dues or don't qualify for scholarships. One key focus will be learning how to provide support for more frail clients, who might not utilizing the standard of our program. They're simply too frail. They need to be independent to use our program. So we will be working with the Arlington Village to understand better their practices and their strategies. Thank you, Wendy.
So we're doing this together. I've had the chance to talk to you guys last week. You've got basically our shtick, we're doing rides and other. Next slide, Helen. When we looked at our numbers, we did 4,000 services last year, about 1,800 round trip rides, 43,000 miles paid for by our drivers. Next, look back at the 10-year stats, 21,000, 22,000 services, 74,000 hours, and almost 250,000 ride miles driven. Next, this is the slide to talk about, what are the opportunities and challenges? So one, we are all just a fabric of the transportation needs of our county. Metro Access, Star, Northern Virginia Ride, Shepherd Center, A&V, individual faith organizations that are helping their parishioners. It's all a fabric. We're all doing, the same job. We're just helping clients who need that help. So what we know, demand is rising. You guys know the stats better than I. Older population is getting older. It's getting more challenging to drive in our area. People have more medical appointments than they know what to do with. How many times I take people to VHC once a week, if not twice a week. So we've got a really significant demand. And as we are all saying, we don't have enough drivers. I mean, we are not at 100% fulfilling requests from our members. We are every day saying we still have 2 open rides for tomorrow and begging someone to take that open ride, or what we call dialing for drivers. The day before we start, if nobody's responded that they can do a ride, we start dialing. Hi, we've got an open ride tomorrow. Can you do it? We do everything we can to fill those rides. But supply is not keeping up with demand. One of the challenges of success is more people know about you, more people are coming to us for services. We are working hard to do that. Volunteer needs sticking with member need. People with more significant mobility challenges. We always say it's a volunteer helping somebody. So there's limited physical support that they can give to a person, even someone who is mobile. We can't lift them out of the car. We can give a guiding hand to get into the car. I've got some volunteers that wouldn't take a very frail older woman, still mobile, but he was afraid he was going to hurt her. He thought just holding her by an upper arm to give her the extra support she needed, he would physically hurt her. So there's a whole issue of frailty that we're trying to deal with, not to mention rollators are getting bigger. What they call a mobile wheelchair is getting heavier. On one hand, you want to have an SUV to put that wheelchair in the back, and yet the client can't get into an SUV. They want a low-sitting sedan. So we're dealing with all of those dynamics. Nothing I'm saying is not something that you'd hear from any one of us. So those issues of mobility are hitting us. People who want to go to Georgetown, people who want to go to MedStar, people who want to, for some reason, go down to Alexandria Hospital. Those are challenges for us. Everyone loves going to VHC. You want to go somewhere else, you got to work a little bit harder to get that driver. Questions to short notice. My doctor said I need to come in tomorrow for a blood test. We've got to try to fill those needs. And then time commitment. Now we're getting to people who you pick them up, they want to be picked up a half hour earlier, just even when it's a 5-minute drive. They want to know they get there well in advance. Sometimes they want to be accompanied into the medical suite because they want to know they can get to the doctor's office. Some people want the person to stay with them so they know they have the ride home. We're basically talking, a 2.5 to 3 or 4 hour commitment for what seems to be a 1 hour medical appointment. So we're getting more and more of those. So the time commitment that we ask from our volunteers is pretty significant. You don't always see it in the miles, but you see it when the time and miles reports come back to us. So those are our challenges. We love what we do. We know we're doing good work, but it's getting a little bit harder to do it. So We're not looking for answers from you right now. We're just letting you know what the circumstances are that we're dealing with. And we'd be happy to take questions.
Yes, do we have any questions? Yes, Kathleen.
So you talked a lot about recruitment and the supply and demand issue. Could you talk a little bit about, any feedback mechanisms there are for both volunteers and riders to sort of share feedback?
Sure.
And, whether there are certain things like commitment that are really making the recruitment hard.
Right. So for every ride that our folks give, there is what we call a time and miles report. So they email us back how much time and miles they spent. It goes into our database so we can give you those stats. But they also have the opportunity to give us written feedback. So if they have noticed something about the person they're driving, it may be a change in medical condition, it may be a loss of some cognitive ability. We absolutely get that feedback and take follow-up action based on it. But we are hearing that. Or the person didn't show up, or I called and they said they were coming down and they never came down. Those are the hardest ones.
We do an annual survey of all of our riders and drivers, and we change our program significantly based on what people tell us. So the most common, I've done this now 3 years, is just accuracy of the ride description. People want the time to be absolutely correct, so we learn to overestimate. The other thing I always say to build a good volunteer rides program, the most important thing you can do is make the clients recruit and screen clients well. That will, there are some people who are not appropriate for volunteer rides. And if you have people that are appropriate and make a pleasant experience for the drivers, they come back. So just that upfront agreements on both ends make a big difference.
All right, Carlos.
So I have a naive question. Does the volunteer driver have to be the same that drops them off at medical equipment and then have to wait until the medical equipment is finished?
For us, it's usually the same because we do round trip rides, but it doesn't have to be. We can split a difficult ride into two different ways. If someone's going into the district and or someone has a 2 or 3 hour colonoscopy appointment, we can split it into 2 one-ways. And if we split it into 2 ways, that means we're looking for 2 drivers. So it's not always an advantage for us. It comes with all of its challenges, but generally for us, almost all the time, it's the same driver going.
And I ask that as a way of saying, is it possible to talk to people like partner with like Uber when they have downtime for drivers? Suddenly those last second requests, they say, oh, an Uber actually needs drivers. Brands.
Yeah, so we have about $2,000 in our budget to do paid drivers. So if we can't fill a ride, we do say you can take an Uber, you can take a taxi, we'll reimburse you for that expense. Getting Uber to pay for it would be nicer, but we budget at least a small amount to be able to offer somebody a taxi ride or an Uber ride if they want to take it.
Yeah, because in New York, they partnered with folks to get people to vaccination schedules. And it worked. I mean, it was a win-win. You never know.
Thank you. All right, Kath.
So how do the 2 programs work together? When A and B can't find a rider, do you call Northern Virginia Rides and say, oh, we have this need?
No,
So
because it's
that's
all
not-
happening too late. I mean, we know we don't have a driver the day before and calling them and saying, hey, we've got somebody who needs to go somewhere at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Doesn't work.
Okay, all right.
So the calls are scheduled saying the day before. Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, we actually ask our people to give us 3 days notice of arrival and we send it out. We're sending outbound messages to our volunteers twice a day, noon and 3 o'clock. The 3 o'clock is, here are open rides for the next 2 weeks. The noon is, and here are the few that we haven't filled for the next 24 hours. So we've got different strategies to fill rides, but
So if I'm a volunteer and I have Friday afternoon, I may.
you can sign up for it well in advance. Yeah.
Do you have volunteers who work for both A and B and the Virginia Rides?
We probably do, but we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Like you drive every day. We have people who drive every day.
There was one person who went on next door and said, oh, I'm just a neighbor and I'm happy to give any old person a ride to anything. We all jumped on that. Talking about, how many people say, oh, if you want to give people a ride, talk to A and B, at Pepper Center. We all said, he hasn't communicated with us, so I don't know what he decided to do. But we do encourage people like that. I mean, there is a system that we've done. We've done a clearance process of our drivers, both in terms of critical and driving history. I mean, this guy who said, I'll give anybody a ride, we would encourage both sides of that equation to come through an organization that's gonna put some controls in place.
Who else got questions? Charlie?
You know, there's a somewhat similar program out there called ITN America.
Yeah.
Travel, network travel, something like
Right.
that sustains itself in part by people giving their car when they no longer can drive to the organization. And that gives them a certain number of credits. It also gives the organization more budget to pay drivers. Has anything like that been considered in that one thing?
We haven't looked to, grab that kind of significant donation. I mean, it's a good idea to encourage people to donate their cars, which we would then resell. But ITN America is a huge, national network, out of Maine. They've gotten a lot of, federal support to build a software package for transportation rides, that they offer on a subscription basis around the country.
All right, any other questions, comments?
There's also an app for people who want to lend a car and have drivers. So, yeah, you can have your car available. It's an app. You just click it and people can use your car and get reimbursed.
All right, so seeing
So
there,
thanks very much.
unless there's anything else, I want to thank, Lena, Emily, Wendy, thank you very much. So at this point, we can does anyone need a break? If not, we're gonna drive through. Anyone need a break? Don't see anything, so, all right, so we're gonna keep going then. Yeah, next is approval of the May meeting minutes. So I'm gonna just vote, all those, I'm sorry? Yeah, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
great, all in favor? No
Aye.
opposed? No opposition, all right, great. Yes.
Oh, we got to abstain.
We have an abstain, okay. Next, staff. reports.
All right.
Helen.
Perfect. Thank you, William. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you that are here and all of you online. So I too would like to extend a warm welcome to Molly. She was appointed in May and now completes our roster for 2 weeks.
Wait a minute.
We're going to take a victory if we have a complete roster. Andrea is here with us again today, and this is her last meeting with us. So thank you again to Andrea for all the help. Okay, so a couple of things. I've received questions from a few of you about a recent Gazette Leader article on potential new restrictions on commission activities. I think it was titled something like Commissions Go Rogue or something like that. So I am working with the county board office to get updates. They are working on collecting input so they can update the handbook that you all get when you're appointed. It has to go through an internal review after they've collected all that input. So it's going to be at least a month before I have another update for you on that. But as soon as we know what the impact or what the changes are, I will keep you all posted. Okay, so nothing new at this point, but there will be changes coming soon. Also on the topic of changes, we all know that the new electronic meeting policy or legislation was passed. Received some preliminary information about the changes as they will exist in Arlington County. And there are still a few items that I am waiting on, so we don't have an electronic meeting policy to vote on today. I am hoping that in July we'll have one. Just a couple items to note, right? There's going to still be a requirement to have a physical quorum in person at the meeting to be able to hold a meeting. And there are still the same 4 exemptions that exist for remote participation. So that's a personal disability, if you are a caregiver, if you have a personal reason, and that's limited to 2 per year. And then if you live more than 60 miles away from where the meeting is located, which does not apply in Arlington. So, so those are the exemptions. If you want to request one of those exemptions from participating in person for a meeting, you have to notify me or William before the meeting.
that you're going to participate remotely. And then if you are participating remotely, you have to be on camera the whole time, right? As a commissioner, we'll have to be on camera the whole time. And that will be true if we're having a purely virtual meeting as well. The commissioners need to be seen and heard, okay? So a couple of the other changes to note, right? We also know that caregivers now can count towards quorum. That was another part of the legislation, even if they're participating virtually. But the definition of a caregiver is slightly different, okay? They're defining now a caregiver as somebody who is taking care of a person who is related by blood, marriage, or adoption. I have asked for a clarification if that means that the domestic partner definition of family caregiver has been removed. I have not gotten an answer from the county attorney's office yet. Okay, so right now the definition of a caregiver is if you're taking care of somebody related by blood, marriage, or adoption. We will be allowed to have 50% of our meetings virtual, but they can't be consecutive meetings. So we can't do January, February. It would have to be January or December or February. And we will have to update our electronic meeting policy annually now. So like I said, I've asked for some clarification. I've also asked if they're going to do a new template policy, and I have not gotten answers on either of those yet. But we will hopefully have something to put forward before you in July. So we can start September on our new policy. All right. Got notification last month that the communications department has updated their YouTube page to make it easier for you all to find the recordings of these meetings. So we record our main commission meeting every month. So there is now a YouTube channel for the county meetings, and there is a playlist for the Commission on Aging meetings. Okay. So yeah, very exciting. And I provided this information in the read ahead package, the links to both of those. Jim Morris has found the playlist, I think. He said it wasn't super easy to find the exact meeting you're looking for, but you at least found the playlist and used it. So it is there and it's working. Okay. All right, and then from the Agency on Aging side, we're continuing our recruitment for a part-time nutritionist. We had some interviews last week, so fingers crossed one of these will work out. I would like to give a shout out to Michelle Thomas and the VICAP team. They were selected to receive the Race Equity Civic Engagement Award at the upcoming Arlington Cares event, which will be on. Congratulations to Michelle and all her hard work, and then her team who supports her. Great work. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be sending out my annual survey to the commissioners, collecting information that I need then to be able to demonstrate when I submit the area plan that we are meeting the requirements of the Older Americans Act for an advisory board. So several of you know we have requirements like we have to have 50% older adults on the commission, and we have to have people represented from healthcare, veterans, and various other sectors within the community. So the purpose of that survey that I'll be sending out soon is to collect the information that I need to demonstrate that we are indeed in compliance with that. So when that comes out, please do respond to that as quickly as possible. The state is very behind on sending us our allocations and area plan requirements for this year. But I have a feeling that that doesn't mean that I'm going to get extra time to finish it. So if you could please respond to that as soon as I send it out, I would greatly appreciate it. And then finally, I'm very excited to report that the Arlington Agency on Aging and the Alexandria Agency on Aging are combining forces to create a joint no wrong door advisory council. Okay. The purpose of the advisory council is to bring home and community-based supports together, service providers together to really have conversations about how to better serve our older adults. All right. We're planning a quarterly meeting schedule, and the inaugural meeting is going to be Tuesday, June the 25th at 1:30 p.m. We're going from 1:30 to 3:30, and it will be at the Longbridge Aquatic Center. So I believe that I included all of you in on the invitation, but if you want more information, if you've got some questions, please just let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions that I have. I would welcome all of you to attend on the 25th. if you're able, I'd love to see you there. And with that, I'm done with my comments and I'll turn it over to Rachel.
All right, thank you, Ellen. Rachel.
Morning, everyone, and welcome, Molly. Looking forward to meeting you, getting to know you better. Catalina as well, and I don't know if Michael is here. But just excited again to see all the new faces, and Andrea, thanking you for your many, many contributions, and we know you're not going very far, so we'll find you for another walking meeting for sure. A few updates. I'll start sort of local and then go a little bit bigger, but Adult Protective Services, we have identified a candidate for the Human Service Clinician 3 position, the team lead. And so we'll be excited to share that probably at the next meeting. The team still has one vacancy. And so again, just our Adult Protective Services team is working very hard with a short, small staff. And so just they're continuing to do great work and Leach's leadership. One of the things I wanted to mention as it relates to the land lease discussion is that when Adult Protective Services receives a report in a long-term care setting, they will conduct their visit unannounced. So, and the first person they meet with is the administrator in those communities. So if we get a call of a report agency, the APS worker will go out, conduct that visit, and they go unannounced. But we did recognize on Saturday Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and the United Nations hosted a webinar, which we can share as a follow-up to this meeting, but really just recognizing and elevating the issues of abuse, neglect, and exploitation that impact older adults, as well as persons with disabilities. Shifting gears a little bit, last week, Maimuna and I were part of the county team that had a work session around the comprehensive plan. I mentioned this at the May meeting that the county is in the process of updating the comprehensive plan. And this was referenced in Melissa's presentation. All of this sort of master transportation plans, affordable housing plans, stormwater, all kind of feeds into the comprehensive plan. Some of the goals that this update to the plan are focusing on is modernization, being more people-centered, broadening county priorities, and thanks to all of your advocacy, age-friendly will be an integral part of the update to the comprehensive plan. We were also really excited to learn that in April, Arlington adopted equitable principles for equitable development. And so some of these principles will be incorporated. A few that I just wanted to call out. One is acknowledge history and repair past harms, looking at inclusive and meaningful community engagement. I think a lot of the work that we do with the Community Engagement Forum can be highlighted there. And then, of course, something very near and dear to all of our hearts is expand affordable housing options and preserve existing affordability. So just a lot to come there. The next few months will focus on engagement. And so we'll be sure to share some of the dates, the information, and the ways to engage around the comprehensive plan. And then the last two updates that I have, we did receive a request from the statewide agencies on aging. We received a request from Senator Kane's office back when they were in the process of reviewing the Older Americans Act and updating that. They had asked for individuals, older adults, caregivers with lived experience. And so we are kind of seeking older adults who may benefit from transportation services, nutrition services, legal services, many of the programs that are funded by the Older Americans Act. So if you do have someone who might be interested, please let Helen or I know. I know Marta from Culper Garden has shared, she has a few names. But if you have anyone, the senator is looking at collecting those stories to really emphasize the benefit and the impact of these funds and these services. And that's probably part of the reauthorization of the Older Americans Act that's underway.
Yes,
That's great. Because there's also, an effort to actually increase funding, like to double the funding under OAA, all of these support and services that your agency provides. So getting those stories is really critical.
Exactly. And that's the power of
the impact of the
Yeah.
funds and the need for increased funding. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then just the last thing that I had, we received notice last week, and many of you may have seen that both ART and STAR, so two really critical transportation services in Arlington, they are increasing their fares just starting July 1st. We were a little bit surprised, and so we really need your help in getting this information out. But the prices are increasing from $4 to $4.50 for Zone 1, $5.50 to $6.20. I don't know, carrying your 2 dimes around for Zone 2, and then $9.50 to $10.70 for Zone 3. So we know this is going to have an impact on the individuals that we serve, we work with, live next to, on us. So please just, we'll send the link and the information out afterwards, but anything you can do just to make sure people are aware of this change that's happening July 1st, please use your voice to share that information with them. And with that, I will pass it over to Maimuna, if she's still online.
All right, well, while we wait for Maimuna, so, yeah, thank you, Rachel. Regarding ART and STAR, and all of the transportation, including, Metro and WMATA, you know, ridership is down, funding is down, so they're looking for ways to support, you know, existing service. And so, of course, they're raising the fares. And the good news, though, is STAR has, I believe, about 95% on-time pickup. That's the disabled transit. ART, not so high from what I saw on online on their reports, but just like everyone else, you know, costs are going up. So do we have? It doesn't look like my movie will be on. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll
I guess
get.
the only update I might have for
Go
Maimuna quickly is with the RAP program. This is the regional program that supports older adults in long-term care settings. Dr. Shandia Johnson is back from family leave today. She is in a developmental role, and that position, I believe, will be going out in the next few weeks for recruitment.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. All right, so we get to the committees and work group updates. And yeah, I'm gonna skip that. So, I think I did my intro, so I think we're good with that.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Audrey, how's it?
Okay, so I have an update in the, whatever, I think I sent out is. So I'm just gonna add a couple things. The committee on top of the outreach is looking at, a few assignments for basically the year. One is to research aging in place in other jurisdictions, looking for best practices. One is to collect information on home modification programs that could support homeowners who wish to age in place. Another is to delve into the AARP website for resources on housing and topics they may cover on housing issues. Those. Talking to the Civic Association Federation to see how and if we could communicate with civic associations. And that's particularly important when it comes to putting in new residences and all of the NIMBYism we've been encountering. See if we could talk to civic associations. And then I'm organizing a tour of the Oakwood Meadows affordable housing residence that's in Alexandria. And that's going to be July 31st. And I'd welcome anyone to join us. We're going to carpool if anybody needs that. And they have used universal design throughout the just select units, which is why we're particularly interesting. It's an residence. And that's all I have. Erica, do you want to say anything about universal design?
Yes, the universal design checklist that we've been working on as part of our age-friendly plan for the past several years is finalized, and we have, I think it's coming up on the agenda, a letter to go to the county board, and not only the county board, but the planning commission, the housing commission, the disability commission, to let them know about the tool, send the tool to them, and hope that they use the tool. And after that, it will be up to us as well to make sure that now that we have the tool, that we all use the tool.
All right. Thank you, Erica. Does anyone have questions or comments regarding the letter?
I thought it was an excellent letter, just a couple, punctuation stuff, but that's it. It needs to be numbered, but big deal.
Great, yeah, please submit those, yeah. Anyone else? All right, so do I have a motion to approve the letter?
I move to approve the letter.
Okay, a second, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Any opposed? Okay, letter done, thank you. And subject to any, any edits from Andrea. So that'd be great, thank you very much. All right, housing, Anthony, I just heard you, so, legislative update, please.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So we have the 2025 NBAN platform items. We have 3 legislative priorities and 3 budget priorities. The 3 legislative priorities are eviction prevention is number 1. The second one is enabling local governments to require new assisted living residencies to set aside units for low-income residents. This is an important one that we've been kind of chopping away at for a little while. The third and final legislative priority is requiring continuing education for direct care workers in addressing dementia. When it comes to our 3 budget priorities, the first one is long-term care workforce recruiting in a training program. That's our first. The second one is focused on increasing funding for core area agency on aging services for home and community-based care. Helen's aware of this, and she's actually the chair on that. And the third and final one, which is focusing on increasing the monthly SNAP benefit from $23 to $50 per month for older adults. So each of these are going to start going through the process in terms of forming their committees, their chairs. Some of that's already begun in terms of getting the wording done, but all of this is really gearing towards what's going to be our next major step, which is going to be the NVAN breakfast. So that's where the legislative committee is. We meet next month.
So I think, what is the date for the breakfast?
It is September. Give me 1 second. I'll verify it.
September 20th. Great. So yeah, I'm looking at a number of people around the room who are involved in NBAN. We have a couple of the chairs here, Helen and Michael Schuster. And of course, you're all invited to attend the breakfast where we engage with legislators. And NBAN does a lot of great things. And the electronic meetings is one item that we got enacted last year. So please, yeah, we look forward to your involvement. So thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
And Charlie, any questions for Anthony?
I didn't hear the first legislative.
This is eviction.
Oh, that was eviction. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, eviction prevention.
What you talked about earlier. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That's
Any
something
other-
Delegate Adele was very passionate about and remains passionate about. So we're hoping to be a little bit increase our kind of success rate here this go around on the 2025 internet platform.
All right. Again, any other questions, comments, legislative? All right, Charlie, long-term care residents.
Well, the committee met last Thursday, but unfortunately I was on travel and was not able to attend it. So my Muna ran the meeting, and I don't know if anyone on the committee is here, has any comments on that meeting. But I'm not able to sit into any comments.
All right, maybe we'll get it next time. Okay, thank you, Charlie. Catalina, transportation.
Yeah, so I'll just highlight a couple of things outside of that note that we've sent for the report. But sidewalks continues to be a topic of conversation at the various commission meetings that we sit in on. The Transportation Commission, came up in the Disability Advisory Commission, the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission. So we're just continuing to try to think through our approach there. We did a couple, preliminary sidewalk audits using ARP's walk audit toolkits and trying to leverage, again, like the different resources available to us through that. And so more to come, but I know that the Transportation Commission meeting mentioned, they had done a sidewalk inventory and there were certain segments that were rated 4 and scheduled for replacement. And it came up again in the Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission about, certain sidewalk projects on the horizon. So more to come. Aside from that, we heard from Claire Jacobson. She recommended the age requirement for super senior taxi be dropped from 70 to 60 or 65, and lowering the cost of each booklet from $10 to $7. So we have to sort of regroup with her and talk through that a little bit more, and her idea there. And then I know we're kind of gearing up for other committee meetings later this summer. So next meeting is July 12th for the Transportation Committee, and that's going to feature Andrew Shaw, who's a training and mobility manager from the Independence Center of Northern Virginia, to just talk about other transportation services that are a part of this fabric, like the conversation today. And then in September, we'll have Christine Baker, who's going to give a presentation on the Vision Zero 5-year plan. So that'll be a good update to have. And then separately, Will and I are working with Helen to try to just continue outreach to other county groups to make sure we can advance our age-friendly plan and do some Social 60 cafe outreach so we can get out there this summer and build on some of the things that we had heard at the community engagement forum in March. So more listening.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I do. This is Claire. Can you hear me?
Hey, Claire. Yes,
Hi,
we can hear you.
Real quick. Thank you. I'm on the phone. This is Claire Jacobson. I'm a member of the Long-Term Care Residences Committee, and I'm the one who made that suggestion regarding the Super Saver Taxi program. In addition to lowering the age, lowering the cost, I also made another recommendation. There were three. That is to increase the number of booklets per year. Right now, I think it's 20 books per year. And we all know one book does not go very far, even for a taxi run within Arlington. So I was also urging that the number of books be increased from 20 to 36. So I did not want that part to be somewhat overlooked or lost, because I think the increase in booklets is also very, very, very important. So that gives them about, three booklets a month, and that goes very, very quickly. So hopefully there will be some support to increase that to 36. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. Do we have any other questions or comments? Regarding the sidewalks, the key thing is apparently to engage with your civic association and get on the calendar of Neighborhood Complete Streets Commission, where it's voted on, and the successful programs are two which had $1 million apiece. One in Bluemont, the other one escapes me, but if you want your sidewalks improved, there's a process. So I know that's a hot topic. It's brought up before, and there's a process to do it, and there's a lot of money apparently. Okay, all right. Carlos, aging, equity, and engagement.
Well, good morning. It's good to be here in person. Everything rich home.
I have an excuse.
I know you do. At any rate, it's good to be here in person, and moving forward, I'll be here in person. It's a good thing, because you also see the nuances of people's thinking, either physically or just raising your hand, like that question and Charlie's comment, like how that makes us think together when we're actually here in person. So it's good to be here. So a lot of things are happening. One is that we are moving forward with collaborating with the Community Foundation, establishing a fund to support LGBTQ activities program, one for older adults, other intergenerational opportunities. And we're having a meeting in September, a listening session in September, the Signature Theater is coming up to host. So more to come on that people have been asking to go to that, and I'll let you know. And then I'm going to turn it over for a second over to Roland, that's been partaking in all kinds of events and meetings that really are part of our work as well.
Since we submitted the report, Michelle Thomas and I last week attended a seminar on fraud and fraud prevention, which was put together by the Administration for Community Living. It's part of a pilot project by the Office of Management and Budget in which they're looking at programs that can be put together dealing with fraud and fraud prevention. It ended with a session where members of the group had a very good talk about what went on with the panels. Michelle and I did a debriefing. We're going to do further presentation before the equity committee because as a result of what we learned, there are certain areas that I think we should be looking into a little bit more, such as Social Security fraud. We'll be dealing with that. Also, this particular administration for Administrative Community Living will have its third seminar in September, and we're going to be pretty much attending that seminar as well. And then the decision will be made as to whether or not they're going to be having more of those in the future. Also, Michelle and I are working on another seminar to present hopefully next month, if we can get the speakers lined up regarding fraud. One of the speakers we're trying to get is the Commonwealth attorney. So if we can get her to come and speak, that would be absolutely great. Also, I just want to end by giving a shout out to the 55 plus program. For those of you who may not know this month is Pride Month. The 55 plus program has some incredible activities. For the month of June, they had one last week, they have two this week, and they have pretty much one next week. And for any of you who want to attend a very, very fun event, this will be their second year. They're going to have a bingo night on the 25th. It's a drag bingo. I'm the person doing drag. It's going to be a drag bingo at Walter Reed. Very well attended last year, and I hope it's going to be pretty much well attended this year. So shout out to them for the hell of a program that they put together. I think that's it.
Thank you. And then also, as part of our plan is to start establishing and developing some webinars to increase the capacity of organizations to be much more age-friendly in the development and design of what they do, whether that's a website, whether that be materials, old-fashioned flyers. So stay tuned for that. And if there's an opportunity, and I like the idea that there's a YouTube channel, and I don't know if it's ours per se, but if we can upload those webinar recordings to that channel from the county, besides just our meetings, so there's a resource as opposed to just the meeting. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's what I have for report.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Roland. Do we have any questions, comments for Aging Equity? So yeah, great, thank you. And regarding the fraud, over the weekend, I was looking at the U.S. Attorney's website. So you may want to invite them as well, the Eastern District of Virginia. They reported two major fraud cases in Southern Virginia. There was a guy, a roofer, going around to older adults, and he, I think, defrauded more than $1 million by going to your house to say, hey, you need a roof thing, and never redid it. And then I guess came back to the same person and kept doing it. And so, so that was him. And then in Northern Virginia, we had an individual who was indicted because he called older adults and got them to buy gift cards for, I guess, purportedly, good causes. But then he, of course, used it for his own benefit. Over $1 million. So I'm sure the Eastern District has contacts, and you being a lawyer, you know how to get them.
Thank you. I will do that. I will follow up, sir.
Thank you very much.
Comment about the process that I just
please.
So something I read about recently too was artificial intelligence and how that's really, kind of leading its way into the fraud space. So it might have come up in your webinar and other readings, but I think that's something to keep track of because it's really making it easier for bad actors out there to, do these grand schemes and trick folks.
It's already happening. Thank you. On that note, Willie, I will forward this question to Melissa because one of my concerns is some of the data is out on the cloud, that the idea of privacy being part, that people can actually target you and really, it opens the door.
Sure, yeah. Makes sense. All right, Linda, health and wellness.
Thank you. Our Health and Wellness Committee met on the 14th. And one of our topics was that we're looking at as part of the age-friendly plan is dental coverage and what the options are particularly for older adults who are low income. So we had a presentation on what is a part of established coverage, Medicare, Medicaid Advantage, et cetera. And Michelle did a wonderful job helping us better understand if there is any opportunity for coverage. And there's a little, but not much. So we continue to look and educate ourselves, being a new committee, on exactly what is out there so that we can understand how to promote that information or advocate for better information. So our next, we were also informed by Amanda, who is our liaison, what's happening in Arlington County regarding on-site dental. There is apparently opportunity that the public health division is pursuing to replace the dentist who retired at the end of last fiscal year. Also, we're looking at what is happening with neighborhood health, who had provided some on-site dental. So the dental topic continues to evolve. Our next meeting is in September. We have a couple assignments for each other that will first at dental, then it's wellness programs under Title 3D, and finally start to understand more about discharge planning at BHC. So that is pretty much what we have done.
Any questions or comments for Linda?
Just wanted to mention too, Rachel talked about the age-friendly ecosystem.
Oh, yes, good, thank you.
Program that's gonna happen in October, and we're excited about that because we have a specific goal and objectives related to that. So that would be a good place to learn more about what's happening locally and how we kind of fit into that ecosystem with health systems, government, with public health. I'm not sure if Arlington County Public Health is looking at age-friendly public health as well. That might be something we explore too, and age-friendly universities.
We can send the registration for that, those dates.
Yeah, please do.
Yes, thank you.
Great. And we are a new committee, so we're still looking for members, if anybody's interested in joining us. We meet, we meet for 1 hour and just a meeting in Shirlington, because that is a really good central location for all of us to.
All right, thank you, Linda. Okay, so next liaison update.
So that would be like 55 plus, age friendly, and do you have anything in particular, Jennifer?
Anybody hasn't heard, the Alliance's fundraiser is tomorrow. They're near Lee's to Rock from Barbecue, so I've got a few of these. I can start on with them for everybody, but I'll just pass those around in case anybody needs them. You have lunch at Rockland's 50% goes to the Alliance, which they in turn send back to the community center live fruit and fruits. And we just got a Pride Month and our 70th anniversary and stuff is gearing up this summer, so you'll be hearing lots of stuff about that.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for Jennifer?
Other than to say Rockland's is absolutely marvelous. And so is Jeremy.
Yes. Yes, on both counts.
Oh, sorry, just reminded me, this is all day. It's not just lunch, it's dinner. You can get dinner. And I know there's lots, the county, I think, having some June, teams programming tomorrow, so unfortunately, at the same time, you can go to that and get it after.
Great. Any other liaisons to reports? And speaking of Juneteenth, it's on Wednesday, a new federal holiday, although I think 40+ states already recognize that, so it's a day celebrating freedom, and so I wish you happy Juneteenth. Yes, Linda.
I don't know if this has funneled back to you, Helen, but is there a possibility that we can get some hard copies of the full age-friendly plan as it was adopted?
Yes, so I need to connect with Rachel because we had talked about prettying it up before it becomes official. And so just need to see where we're at with that, and
Okay.
I've got it. Yeah, yes, so. Yeah, we just need to connect and talk about that for 5 minutes, and then we'll have it ready to print and distribute, but yes, you can.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, on time, on target here. Yes. Any other old business?
Well, I guess it's old business. I wanted to say it's been an honor, to work on the Commission on Aging and the Age Friendly Arlington Initiative. It's lovely to see and hear you actually making Arlington friendly for all ages, involving other commissions. It was lovely to see this in the Universal Design Checklist. And of course, here with 55 plus, is going to go and to meet with our advisory committee. Marvelous. And I particularly like today's Cherry Daily stuff. You were so right to get program needs on the table while money was on the table, namely the lease. And good for you. Yay, Commission on Aging.
Thank you, Andrew. You're always a great colleague and we appreciate all the contributions you made. I think you served on the commission twice. All right, thank you so much. Do we have any new business anyone would like to bring up?
Just a question to follow up on earlier. Where are we with recruitment for commissioners and what do the demographics look like? Do we have enough people who are 60 and above?
We have one more and coming up, right? And that needs to be applauded. We're at the 50%.
Yeah, no, William's right. We are right now at the 50% line. And so any new recruits have to be 60 and older for Andrea's replacement. Right, so.
Did Tom ever, get back to you, Tom Curtis? Okay, I will encourage him.
Yes.
Yeah,
Look forward to
he needs to
seeing it.
complete an application and submit it. That's the step he needs to take. Okay, thank you.
All right, so our next meeting will be on July 15 and we take a break in August. It's great seeing you all and keep in touch.
Yeah.
I